Yes. Yeah. Greetings and salutations, people of YouTube.com, from men and women from afar, from distant lands. I myself find myself in the particular country, probably the greatest country, the United States of America. I'm broadcasting to you live from a parking lot. I pulled over because I had something on my mind that has been on my mind for some time, and I feel most compelled to share my message. The truth of the matter, dearest friends, is I am a very lonely, isolated individual. I once had a life of promise and prosperity, and I had women. I had the interest of women, I would say. I didn't have women like in a cage or at my personal possession. No, I had women on my Rolodex. I was talking to them. I was conversing with them. I had the promising life of a young theater actor. I had a particular power on stage and a very powerful presence, and I was committed to being a Shakespearean actor, and maybe you guys can relate to this, but life has a way of throwing you many a great curveball, and I basically lived, a very raucous college years, very much living like a Weldian dandy, a hedonistic rake, trouncing about the campus, looking for whatever women would take my fancy, and the alcohol, and the marijuana, and the salvia, and the absinthe, and the LSD, and the psilocybin, and the ayahuasca, and the Ritalin, and the Adderall, and the everything else that I could find. I did with reckless abandon. I took life, I just grabbed it. I was like the little boy in the giving tree. I was like, give me those apples, give me. And, I guess I was more of a deprived youth in my high school years. I was a very angsty, prone to depression, a very alienated young man. And when I went to college, it was, so to speak, like making up for lost time, I would surmise. And anyway, this continued. It continued on. About the year after college was the same thing, more or less. I call it my 5th year of the university. But then I had a waking up of sorts, a spiritual renewal, I guess you could say. I had an interest in, so this was about the year of late 2017, early 2018, in the year of Pope Gregory. And I got very interested in meditations, and I got very interested in Eastern mysticism, and eventually I found myself in the religion of Christianity, and of course I was raised as a very good Catholic boy. And the answer to that question, in case you were wondering, is a loud and resounding no. I was not diddled. I was not fiddled. I was not... I was very much left alone by the clergy, other than when I would come to them for life advice about trading various Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and whether to ask little Susie Jenkins to the school dance and whatnot, your normal things. But eventually I became a Christian, later on kind of got into the Protestantism and the penal substitution and the legalistic nature, the legalistic side of Christianity, which, if you take Protestantism in its purest form, is a very, very legalistic. And eventually I found myself, in retrospect, looking back on it, probably the most consistent form of Christianity would be, at least in Protestantism, would be going back to the Hebraic roots, of course, and observing the dietary laws and the seventh-day Sabbath and the wearing of the tassels and the tithings and so on and so forth. And eventually I found myself in a very good cult. And I don't know, perhaps I will sit down when I come to my abode, and I will sit in my armchair by the fire and regale you with a tale. But as for now, I find myself going down the bit of the scenic route, and what I basically wanted to say, and forgive me, it's 5.5 minutes into this video. You could probably, well, I was going to say you could just skip here, but how would you? Forgive me, dear friends. Hopefully you're still mildly enthralled by this message. Hopefully I haven't raptured your attention by my brute honesty and the lovable autism. Perhaps it's been told to me that I'm probably a spectrum man, and maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'll leave that up to the others to decide, but I'll leave that up to people of more esteemed regality and of greater credentialed nature than myself. But I feel very isolated. I feel very alienated in this world. And sometimes I think when I'm on my computer and I go on the youtube.com on my smartphone, on my iPhone iOS 13, which I very much need an update. And sometimes when you go, when you're in the process of coming into the doom scrolling, as it's called, all the videos are there, but sometimes they'll start playing as if they have their own animated will. And you don't even necessarily want to click it. You're just watching the video graphic icon, and it springs to life like it has a force of its own. And of course the algorithm is so geared towards our wants and our fears and our loves and our weakest natures and our strongest desires, of course. And so it's a very powerful tool. And many times when I'm on the YouTube, and perhaps the greatest irony of all would be if this is how you came across this video, and perhaps I would be one of those video graphic icons. Forgive me if I am, brothers and sisters, but there's many times where I am craving a woman's touch, craving the melodic laugh of an ex-flame after a buffoonery-laden session, singing and dancing and making merry. The melodic trill of the fairer of the sexes, their smooth skin, their... Anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse. You probably know, if you even made it to this lugubrious video. Perhaps you'd catch my gist. I don't need to murder a horse to death, as they say. But many times I'm on the YouTube craving a human connection, and instead there's these little screen people talking to me, and I very much do not like them, and I very much wish I had my own friends, and I had my own girlfriend, and perhaps a wife, and perhaps a harem of women, perhaps just one woman, depending on how much raw ground beef I've had that morning. Usually dictates my numbers of female partners that I'm craving, or wanting, I should say. And I don't know, I guess I wanted to just let out a bit of steam. And, you know, about 7 years ago I became a Christian, and like I said, I went down a very dark road in that spirituality, very legalistic, and now I still consider myself, I'm wearing a Christian attire, I don't know if you can tell. I still ultimately believe, but I have so many questions, so many concerns, so many... I will not get to it this video, but it's like I'm coming back to where I was 7 years ago before I was a Christian. And what Christianity allowed me to do was to totally outsource my own independent thinking. And if that's for, forgive the light, forgive this, friends, I'm in a parking lot and yes, I would powerfully posit at this time that perhaps Christianity did more harm than good for me, even if it is true. And perhaps I haven't found the right expression of the faith. But I just keep going no matter how depressed, no matter how lonely, no matter the mood fluctuations. I make merry of it, and I keep going. And I say the Jesus prayer. I pray to the Theotokos. Sometimes I speak to myself in loving affirmations when I'm not in the pits of a depressive episode. But I don't know, I just wanted to lovingly put forth this video into the ether, into the algorithm. There's so much negativity in there that I wanted to put my own 2 cents, and that even though I'm a lonely and yearning and wanting a connection, especially with the female, but also with a larger community, a brotherhood of sorts. And I don't believe that it's by coincidence that many men are craving these things, and the modern man and this Western industrialized society is so atomized, so insular. But I just keep going, no matter how sad I get. I make the sign of the cross. Sometimes I pray, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I give myself loving affirmations, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I play my guitar. Sometimes I just pick up my cat, and he always purrs. And there's just always something. There's just always a little bit to hang on to every day that keeps me from entering the complete darkness. For I have been wedded in darkness for a long time, my friends, and I have gone down a dark road, and I have done many bad things. But I think we all need to give ourselves a little bit of self-love, a little bit of self-compassion. I know I do, friends. I know that many times I have the proclivity to be very hard on myself in a way that I'm not with other people. I generally have greater mercy and compassion towards others than I do for myself, and I'm working on that, friends, and it's my sincerest hope that you will as well. And perhaps that's been something that's perhaps known to you, but maybe at not the conscious forefront of your mind. And perhaps if the universe or God or whoever you want to call it can use me to give you some good ideas, then hallelujah, and God bless you. And I don't know, I just keep moving along no matter how bad it gets. And I am an Irishman. I think maybe that has something to do with it. I like my life buffoonery laden, even though I'm alone and I live in an apartment with just my cat, and I haven't even really furnished the apartment, and there's nothing on the walls, and it's not a pretty sight, friends. It's not a pretty sight. And it's almost like there's something within me that's holding me back from making it nice. But no matter the trauma that I've gone through in my life, my weird relationships with parents, whatever it is that's made me defunct the way that I am, there are many men like me, and whatever, I just keep going. every day is a new day. Who knows? Maybe something funny will happen one day. Maybe I'll fall in love one day. Maybe my cat will do something that's never done. Maybe my cat will make a noise that it's never made before. And I will get it on YouTube and get 600 trillion likes and never have to work a day in my life again. You never know. I'm being a bit silly now. You can probably tell. And despite my more diplomatic and formal way of speaking, I very much love my buffoonery. I love to mess around. I am an Irishman. I like to sing and dance and laugh. And though I don't have a tribe of people, and though I don't have a woman, a girlfriend, or a family, there's sometimes friends where I feel a hope that I will. And I think that hope is something that God always gives to his children. And I need to work on my childlike faith. And perhaps, friends, you can be more sensitive with me about these feelings of hope. I've noticed it recently. I had a very fleeting moment of very powerful hope. And I do think that was the Spirit of God working through me, because it was something so outside of myself. But anyway, let's embrace the hope and walk in the light. And how irksome we are, us particular breed. The ones who, on the surface, their lives are... I could speak for personal. I'll just speak. My life is, on the outside looking in, for an outside objective observer, my life is a bit of a train wreck. And maybe I'll get into it's kind of a complete disaster. I will just be totally honest with you. I mean, it could be a lot worse. However, maybe that I'm just being too... I feel like my life is totally not very good. Not very good. Many people would look at my life and say, oh, cool. You know, when you meet somebody and you say what you do, and yes. But I just keep going. I just put my head against the wall and I just keep going. And I'm very irksome, and people like me are very irksome for the forces of darkness. They just can't, don't get me wrong, there are many times where I feel very, very defeated and very sad. And friends, I've had some very dark thoughts about what to do. But somehow, that little bit of hope always cracks in. And I just live to see another day. And sometimes I have some really good days. And I very much hope and believe that my life will become better. And I will put in the work, and I am becoming very conscious of what particular work needs to be done, the sacrifices that need to be made, and the powerful, all-encompassing intention of my life is to become healed. The healing comes first over pretty much everything else, and I think everything else will float downstream of the healing. And it's kind of liberating in a way to realize that you basically are a fuck up. I'm certainly not perfect. I've made very bad decisions that's led me here rambling for 20 minutes in a parking lot, speaking to nobody in particular, but perhaps everybody at heart. There's a big difference from being 25 and aimless than being 32 and aimless. Could be worse, though. I could be 42. But I'll tell you what, friends. I still have that glimmer of hope. And be sensitive to that hope. Cherish that hope. And build on it. And it's my hope for you that you put healing in your life first above all else, and develop a more childlike, trusting faith in our Heavenly Father. That's what I need to work on now, and I feel that many people like me. I feel very strongly that I'm not alone in this. And I know I may seem like a bit of a obtuse buffoon, but maybe if this video has just reached one person and has helped them, then it's very good, and I'm very happy. So with that, my friends, I will say adieu, and goodbye and good night, and have a great, blessed, powerful weekend. Step into your power as a child of God, and put your healing first. This is the time of healing. Goodbye.